What's up everyone, welcome to the video. We are continuing our West Coast swing here in Sin City at Las Vegas Motor Speedway for the Pennzoil 400 on Sunday, March 5th around 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And fortunately enough for us, the weather looks fantastic this weekend, so practice and qualifying are going to be good to go here. Last week at Auto Club, a complete washout in Southern California. And as you saw, this did lead to some issues early on during the race. We saw Kyle Larson have to bring it down pit road within the first 10 laps, which was absolutely brutal because he did have a very fast car late in the race when he got back on the track. We saw Chase Briscoe have a lawnmower to start the race. So it's going to be nice to be able to have these cars shaken down in practice so we don't have those kind of issues early on. And just having practice and actual qualifying is so nice because we're not going to have all these big names starting in the back, and we'll have some more insight in who's going to bring some speed this week. But anyway, before we get too far into it, if this is your first time here, what's up? My name is Chris Pennell. I break down NASCAR DFS each and every single week on this channel. You'll also find me live on Sunday mornings breaking down the entire slate and answering any questions you may end up having. Usually have a good crowd there, so if you want to come in, hang out, I highly recommend you being there because I'd love to see you. And also, if you do end up enjoying today's free content, the only thing I ask in return, just leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so, and feel free to leave a comment down below, being nice, being mean. I don't really care either way, but I love to hear from you guys. I do want to set a goal here. We have smashed this each and every single week. Hats off to you all. But if we can get over 350 plus likes in this video, I would truly appreciate it. And really quick, let me plug my sponsors because they make these videos possible. But if you want an instant deposit match bonus up to $100 for new users, head over to prizepicks.com or Underdog or download their apps. Super fun sites to play on. I know I'm getting paid to mention this stuff, but I genuinely do enjoy these websites. I play on them each and every single day pretty much for other sports and every single week for NASCAR. So I would not recommend it to you guys if I didn't enjoy it myself. So if you want to support them, support me, support yourself, get an instant deposit match bonus up to $100. Use promo code CPEN in the link down below or the pinned comment. You'll be on your way to having some fun. All right, so getting to the strategy portion of this video, if you are brand new to NASCAR DFS, the first 2 weeks you probably just think you stack the bag each and every single week and print money, which yes, I know Reddick and Byron crashed last week, so it didn't fully work, but some of the other guys in the back did do well. Obviously, Kyle Busch had place differential, Chase Elliott smashed, he was in the 30s. So you probably just think that's all you do. Well, that's not necessarily the case. It's just the way the first 2 races worked out, and with qualifying getting rained out early on, just kind of probably has given you a weird experience so far. But typically at these 1.5 mile tracks, we're looking at multi-dom builds. We need guys that are going to lead laps. If you do not have lap leaders in your lineup, it's probably not going to work out for tournaments. Maybe you can get away with it in cash if you have a certain amount of place differential depending on who's where in the starting order. But typically at these tracks, we're going to start rostering guys starting close to the front. Like if we have a driver, I'm recording this part right before qualifying and practice so I can get it out quicker, so I don't know exactly where these guys are starting at. I will in the driver by driver breakdown portion of this. I'm just saying, for example, if we have a guy like Kyle Busch starting on the pole, yeah, I'm all about that this week. That's totally fine. It's not going to be like, I'm not going to really play anyone in the top 10 for cash this week. Just going to roster everyone in the back. That is not the case this weekend. You're going to want 1 to 2, maybe even 3 guys that have the potential lead laps, accumulate fast laps. Because we have 267 laps on the schedule this week, which equates to right around 180, 170 dominator points. I forget the exact math off the top of my head, but that's a decent amount of dominator points. And if you completely ignore those, maybe, just maybe you get away with that in cash if you have enough place differential and the dominators are low owned. But I'm going to roster probably at least 2 in just about all of my lineups this week, whether it's cash games or tournaments. And if you're looking for comparable tracks this week, I do think Kansas is your best bet to look for Las Vegas. And I know Auto Club has a lot more tire wear than Las Vegas, but I do think the drivers that were fast last week are definitely going to show some speed once again this week. Again, I'm recording this right before practice, so I could be totally wrong, and you'll know about that in about a couple minutes. But Denny Hamlin said that himself on the podcast, and I wouldn't be too surprised if he's correct about that. All right, moving on to the driver-by-driver breakdown portion here. I do have to mention one thing first. If you want to join the best NASCAR DFS community out there, links down below in the description or the pinned comment. Tons of extra content over on the site. Projections, simulations, optimal scores, leverage, projected ownership, the optimizer, the cash and tournament article, the Discord, which is absolutely awesome. We're in there 24/7, talking who knows what at any hour of the day. It's just a great time, great community. I think you will enjoy. And there's other stuff too that I didn't mention. I just don't want to bore everyone to death. But if you want to join, come in. Link down below for the description, and the pricing is very fair. For all the data that I do make available to you all, whether it be historical or predictive, and it's got everything you need, nice and neat, in a nice orderly fashion, color-coded, so it's very easy to read and follow. And I do have tutorials that would walk you through everything if you have any questions. All right, so practice and qualifying just ended a couple minutes ago. Got everything uploaded here, so this is gonna be my first time running through the entire slate with you guys. So just my first reactions to the slate. They put the most up-to-date stuff after I run sims and things like that. They'll be on the Patreon later this evening. And these are not the most up-to-date odds. DraftKings has not yet posted those. I don't think much is going to change, although I wouldn't be surprised if we Joey slide in as the favorite. Although I'm not sure it's going to be quite enough to surpass Busch, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But let's start up top here with the man, Kyle Busch, who's been dominant each and every single week so far this year. Great at the Clash, great in the second dual race, great at Daytona. And then obviously one last week at Auto Club. He comes in as the most expensive driver on both sites, 10-9 on DK, 14 flat over on FanDuel. He's starting in 5th, and he opened up as the favorite for this race. Deservingly so. I mean, like I said, he's been so strong this year. He was great at Vegas, the 2 races last year. This is his home track. I mean, all signs would point to Kyle Busch being great this week. The only concern was how he practiced, which I don't want to really overreact to that too much. Now, I will say if a guy was fast in practice, then yeah, I think that's going to be a good thing, obviously. But if a guy was slow in practice, I don't want to overreact too much. Like Kyle Busch is not going to be a fringe top 30 car in this race. I think everyone can agree with that. 27th, the 1 lap, 28th in the 5 lap. He said he was still messing around with things and how it felt, correlating to the sim and whatnot. Obviously, they struggled kind of early. His teammate Austin Dillon was really bad in practice as well. But they found something in qualifying, picked that up. Obviously, got a top 5 effort there. And like I mentioned earlier, I mean, the guy just has been great at similar tracks dating back to last season. If you're looking at the recent track history, this is not Vegas specific. I hate looking at just track history these days with the next gen car, so I should probably change the heading on there. But it's actually a 5-race sample size of Auto Club last week, which I know is much higher tire wear, but I do think how they performed last week is relevant to this week. The 2 Vegas races last year and the 2 Kansas races from last season. Then if you're looking at the similar track history, that's going to be the ones I mentioned just a little bit ago, and then also all the other 1.5s on the schedule and in Michigan as well, as I believe. But anyway, looking at Kyle Busch here, I mean, the second most DraftKings points per race on this data set, the most FanDuel points, one of the best average finishes, 4 top 5s out of 5 races, the most fast laps, some of the most laps led, a win under his belt. I don't see a reason not to like Kyle Busch. I do not want to overreact to the practice times. I wish he was a bit faster. It would give me some more confidence in him, and that's probably going to rank him down in the model just a little bit. But I do think he's certainly going to be one of the favorites in this race. I think the question is, do I want to play him in cash games or not? I'm just not sure yet. So I don't want to give you guys a definitive answer and be like, yes, I'm 100% playing him in cash, or no, I'm not, only in tournaments, because I don't know yet. I haven't ran projections, ownership, or sims. So I'll let you guys know on the live stream. But as of right now, I'm still debating on that. And then dropping down to the other Kyle here, we have him at $10,700 on DK, 13.5 over on FanDuel. He's starting in 6th. Opened up with the second best odds to win this race over in Vegas. And I'll be honest, I think he's got the car to beat this weekend. I liked him a lot last week. Obviously, was not a good start for Kyle Larson. He had a fast car. He was picking up spots as soon as the race started. Then I see him peel off the pit road. He ends up having an electrical issue, which is one of those things where when you don't have practice, it just kind of sucks. Reminds you of the COVID era where just some cars loaded really bad or some had an issue, and unfortunately that was Kyle Larson. But once he got back into the track, he had 22 fast laps and he was top 5 in speed in the last segment of the race. Like, he had a good car. You just can't overcome being nearly 20 laps down. So assuming he doesn't have another electrical issue, I think Kyle Larson's definitely going to be a contender here. And like I said, it looks like he's got the best car, and we know how good he's been at intermediate tracks over the past couple of seasons, and Vegas has been pretty good to him as well. So yeah, I like Larson. He finished second here in this race last season, and if he's going to be lower owned than Kyle Busch, I don't mind that as a pivot. I mean, Larson sucked for you last week. Kyle Busch smashed, so people are just going to go off of that. Yeah, I'll take Larson at lower ownership. And it looks like he's got a better car this week. I mean, I'm not saying Kyle Busch is going to suck, but Larson looks really, really fast. Joey Logano, $10,500. He's on the pole, and this is a lot more appealing than Christopher Bell in the pool compared to last week. In my opinion, there's more laps. We have practice. The cars aren't going to have an immediate competition caution on lap 15 or lap 20, whenever that was last week. And we've already had, tires on the track, so it's not going to be completely green. So I think Logano can definitely lead the majority of stage 1. This has been a very good track for him. He has 3 wins the past 8 races here, and is also the most recent winner at Las Vegas. He's been a dominator here before. He was pretty fast in practice, obviously incredible in qualifying at a really good lap there. So Logano on the pole, can you play him in cash games? I think you can. Like I said, though, you've got to run some things to see how exactly where he stacks up. But I do think he's a pretty safe play and should be a contender at the end to win. And I would not be surprised if he ends up moving to the favorite, if not close to it. I know he's already tied for third with Ross, but he might take the leap there and he might be the favorite. I'm not sure yet, though. We'll see. Ross Chastain, $10,300. He's starting in 8th. He killed both Vegas races last year. He's been the best driver at intermediates in the next-gen car. Pretty fast in practice, 5th in the 10 laps, 7th in the 5. Wasn't as good as some of these other drivers, and the Group B drivers just weren't quite as fast as some of the Group A guys, which I know Group A was stacked. I mean, you had Busch, Larson, Logano, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, who all had really fast cars. So, I mean, we'll see how that stacks up, if there was much of a difference from Group A, Group B as far as the track speed. But Ross, I mean, he was a guy where even if he wasn't first in practice or first in qualifying, he always ends up getting up front at these track types. So, yeah, he's definitely going to be a threat. He was great at Auto Club last week, which I know is a bit of a different track, but I do think there's going to be some overlap with the guys that were fast last week. We're going to be fast once again. So, yeah, I like Ross a lot. And with Joey being on the pole, and you also have Larson and Busch up there, and then some other drivers that are a little bit cheaper, like a Tyler Reddick, for example. Also, Truex offers some place differential. Maybe it pulls away some ownership from Ross. If that's going to be the case, I want to be overweight in tournaments. I think he was only like 9% owned last week. So I think it's going to come up, especially with how well he performed. But if we can get him at sub 20%, I do like that as a tournament play as far as Dominator is concerned. Not sure I'm going to get there in cash games, but like I said, we'll see. There's a lot of similar drivers because we got Busch in 5th, Larson in 6th, Chastain in 8th. They're all starting close to each other, which doesn't make this a fun tournament slate. It's not like we have a bunch of chalk in the back, which we do have some chalk drivers, but not like we had last week. Dropping down to the 9K range, we have Denny Hamlin, $9,900 on DK, 12 over on FanDuel. He's starting in 12th. Wasn't overly impressed with the Toyotas in practice. One thing I will say is that they had one lone Toyota supposed to go in Group A, which was Tyler Reddick. Obviously, we're going to talk about him later. He did not qualify well because he didn't get to put down a qualifying lap because he had an engine issue. So they had no data going into Group B. Meanwhile, some other teams, they'll have a couple teammates being in the first group and then get some data for the second one and make adjustments on that. They didn't have that. So kind of struggled overall. I mean, I have to look exactly at the practice speeds. From what I remember, I don't remember seeing one good Toyota maybe besides Bubba Wallace. And I know Ty Gibbs qualified well, but we'll get there when we get there. But Denny Hamlin didn't impress me in practice too much. Now, Las Vegas is a very good track for him. In intermediates, he was great at them last year. We can pull up some of his numbers and honestly, quite impressive. 50.3 DraftKings points per race, and average finish inside the top 10, 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s. Not as many laps led as I thought off the top of my head, only 9.4. Using the specific data set that I'm looking at, obviously if you add some other tracks, it gets a little bit better. As you can see here, opening it up to the 11 race sample size of all intermediates from last season. He had 2 wins, 6 top 5s, more Dominator points, and also the second best driver rating. But the ones I'm looking at specifically, jaws the back a little bit. But Hamlin, I just wish I saw more in practice. I wasn't super impressed with Toyotas, so I don't think I'm going to be too high on Hamlin or his buddies. Ryan Blaney, $9,700. He's starting in 3rd. He's got a pretty fast car this weekend. He was also pretty fast at Auto Club early on until he ran into some issues and got stuck in the back for the big one. That ends up pretty much ruining his day. But pretty much a top 3 car in practice right there with his teammate Joey Logano. So I do think he's a nice tournament play as far as a Dominator is concerned. I don't think a lot of people will play Joey and Blaney together, which I'm not sure I'd want to do that much either. But I do think Blaney's got a chance to lead some laps early on as his car obviously looks very fast. Martin Truex Jr., $9,500. He's starting in 15th. Vegas has been a very good track for him, a top 10 machine, but just really slow in practice. 25th, 25th, and 20th. It's just a little bit concerning for the Toyotas. They didn't have much speed. We'll see. I don't think they're going to be as bad as their practice speeds indicate, but I definitely don't think they're going to be as fast as guys like Larson, Logano, Ross, Blaney, Joey up top, Kyle Busch, even though Kyle Busch wasn't that great in practice. Christopher Bell, $9,300. He's starting in 10th. He was first in advancing for qualifying. They ends up finishing last in that second group there. But again, another Toyota that just wasn't super impressive in practice. Sure, he was ninth in the 10 lap, got a bit better there. But I'm just not super high on Christopher Bell here starting in 10th. The price is nice, but I just don't think the speed's going to be as high as some of these other guys. Like William Byron, he looks like he's got a really good car, $9,100. He's starting in 2nd. He was actually first in the 5 and 10 lap runs, better than his teammate Kyle Larson. In practice, just didn't have as quick of a 1 lap there, but he's a threat to dominate. Sure, if you're not playing Joey Logano, you can pivot to guys like Ryan Blaney, William Byron, but they do carry more risk just because they don't have any place differential upside whatsoever. So if you were playing guys like Blaney and Byron, they basically have to finish in the top 3, top 5, and pick up some Dominator points along the way, which is certainly possible. We know Byron's got speed. It just seems like with Byron, he's having trouble putting together full races. Like he had a good car last week, but then at the end, he kept trailing off in long runs. And he ends up having the, was it a wheel penalty, I believe, loose wheel, remember correctly. Just killed his race at the end, finished like 25th. Sucked. He would have been optimal. Dropping down to the 8K range, we have our major chalk of the week once again. The guy that's just off to a really bad start with 2311 Racing, Tyler Reddick, $8,800 on DK, 9K over on FanDuel. More than likely going to be the highest owned driver on both sites. He's starting all the way back on 34th. This was not just based off of speed or anything. When they fired the car up to practice, it just didn't work. Had an engine issue, I guess, and they swapped engines, so didn't get the practice, didn't get the qualifying, do any of that. So unfortunately, we're going in the dark with Tyler Reddick, and he's obviously not had a great start to the season. It seems like he has an issue each and every single week, just keeps finishing in the back. And if we're looking at last season at this specific track, data set that we're looking at 5 races, 2 Kansas, 2 Las Vegas, and 1 Auto Club. Talking about an average finish at 22.4, 16.1 DraftKings points per race. There's a couple top 10s and dominator points, but Reddick can be very up or down. But he's too cheap. He should have a fast enough car to be optimal if he doesn't wreck. Like, I don't think he's going to be a top 10 contender. The Toyotas just don't look that great in general. But if he finishes top 20, top 15, which he should finish top 15 if there's no issues, that's not a bad day starting at 34th at only $8,800. So if you're playing cash games, he's a lock. If you're playing tournaments, though, just be careful because the ownership's going to be high. And if there's a repeat of last week, you were on the. If you faded the guys like Tyler Reddick and William Byron, you definitely set up yourself very nice in tournaments. Dropping down to the 8K range, we have Kevin Harvick, $8,600, starting in 14th. Just kind of the typical Kevin Harvick kind of week where he's mid 8K. He's starting in a really weird spot where you don't want to play him, but he ends up just doing well in typical Kevin Harvick fashion, which is kind of what happened last week. I wasn't in love with him. I kind of didn't like his starting spot. What do you know? He ends up being optimal and having a fantastic race. That's just something Kevin Harvick does. He's a top 15, top 10 machine. Probably be a top 10 contender here, assuming there's no issues. He's had a fast pit crew. Actually, the best overall dating back to last season. He was also pretty good in practice where he was 7th, 5th, and 6th. I do think Harvick is a really nice turn of play, and if you want to pivot off of him from Tyler Reddick, like say Kevin Harvick, he could be a top 5 guy, and if you think Tyler Reddick struggles to be a top 15, top 20 guy, that's some leverage right there, which I don't think I will mind, and I do think Harvick will probably show up as positive leverage in my sims once I run them. Alex Bowman, $8,500. He's starting at 11th. And yeah, I'll be honest, just eyeballing the next 3 guys after Tyler Reddick here, they all make for some really good pivots, even from Austin Dillon as well, who's also starting in 26th, and Josh Berry in 32nd. I think this group of 3 here, Harvick, Bowman, Wallace, makes for some excellent tournament plays because I've actually liked them heading into the weekend, and just the way this stacks up, I think it's perfect as far as ownership is concerned. So looking at Bowman here, he won this race last year, kind of backdoored it, but he set himself up for some success. And if you look at the 4-race sample size for him, because he did miss a race last year, with this data set, 56 DraftKings points per race, an average finish of 5.5, has a win, 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s, and a good chunk of dominator points as well. I think Alex Bowman's a pretty solid pivot here. He should have some speed, and I do like him, only in tournaments though. And the same can be said for Bubba Wallace, $8,300, won the Kansas race last year. And he's had a fast car at these intermediates, just a matter of being able to put a full race together for Bubba. I am kind of concerned that Toyota didn't show much speed in general, but was 6th in the 1 lap and 9th in the 5 lap, so I do think he's going to have a decent car. And if you saw his paint scheme, doesn't look too bad. The black and the blue looks pretty good together, so I do like his car this week. Then we have Austin Dillon, $8,100 on DK. He's starting in 26. Car sucked in practice alongside his teammate Kyle Busch. I'm a little concerned about that. I don't think I want to pay $8,100 for Austin Dillon in 26. I thought he was a good play last week. He was actually pretty good at the tire wear tracks last season. And even at these types of tracks, I mean, 11.4 average finish and in the top 15 each and every single time. But I am a little bit concerned of the speed I saw. I mean, he should be a guy that contends for a top 15. I believe I'm going to have him projected probably for around a 16th to 18th place finish, which is not bad. But I do think there's more tournament upside with guys like Harvick, Bowman, and Wallace. But if you're looking for safety, yeah, Dillon's a fine play. Josh Berry, $8,000. If you're wondering who the heck Josh Berry is, well, he's in the Hendrick camp pretty much. Junior Motorsports and Xfinity. He is a relief driver. Unfortunately, Chase Elliott broke his leg, tibia, I think, in a snowboarding accident last night. So he's going to be gone for several weeks. So get used to seeing Josh Berry's name here. But talented driver. I think the odds DraftKings gave him were insane when it opened at plus 2,000, which is right on par with Harvick and Bowman. That's just ridiculous for a guy that has not had any time at all in the next-gen car. He's had 20 minutes, ran a lot of laps in practice. I believe the most of any driver, but was not fast in those laps. 29th, 21st. I know this says 4th and 1st, but he was like the only driver on the track for those, so it doesn't really count. I know he has place differential upside. He's in the 9 car, but I have a really hard time trusting a driver that has 20 minutes of track time in the next gen car at $8,000. It just seems like an overinflated price tag. If he was in the 6K range, where he probably should be, I mean, I don't think he should even be priced above a guy like Ty Gibbs, to be honest. Like, yeah, we'd be talking about him being a decent player, but this is just way too expensive in my opinion. Eric Jones starting us off with the 7K range, $7,900, a little bit cheaper over on FanDuel. He's starting in 22nd. I don't know what to make of Eric Jones here. I'm not in love with him. This isn't really a track where I'm going to be too excited about rostering him. He had an average finish of around like 20th, 25th place, average running position of 19.2 at these tracks last year. Practice wasn't bad though, 15th, 12th, and 10th. But it's one of those things where, like I said, I don't think Toyota's going to be as bad as they were in practice during the race. So where's that going to come from? Well, I think Eric Jones could be one of those guys that probably practice a little bit better than where he's actually going to finish. And you kind of start dropping it down from there. So I'm not excited about Jones. Like, whatever the optimizer gives me of Jones and like 150 max, sure, I'll play him. But I'm not going to play him in a single inch or 3 max, more than likely. Brad Keselowski at $7,700. He probably overqualified compared to where he's going to finish. 22nd in the 1 lap in practice, 18th in the 5 lap. Obviously had a fine run last week, but there was a lot of attrition last week, so it was kind of survival on some of these drivers' parts. But wasn't bad at these tracks last year. I mean, 17.4 average finish for his price point before he's starting. It's just a bit high. I can't really see Keselowski improving upon that position. Like, I'd much rather play Daniel Suarez here, starting in 24th. He comes in at $7,600. I know practice wasn't super impressive, but sometimes with these track house cars, they just don't practice as good as they're actually going to run. And Suarez had a ton of speed last week. He had some speed last year at these tracks. I know the 18th and 20th in practice isn't amazing, but they have a good pit crew. Starting in 24th, I mean, he's got a legit chance to gain 10 plus spots here. I do think he's a fine play in all formats. Chase Briscoe, $7,400. He's starting in 20th. He had an actual lawnmower last week. I don't know what was wrong with his car, but he was way off the pace last week. Like, we're talking guys like BJ McLeod, JJ Yaley, Cody Ware just straight up outrunning him early on. I know he finished like 20th, but that's just because half the field wrecked out at one point. So he was not good at all last week. But assuming they fixed these issues, which it looks like they did. I mean, 14th in the 1 lap, 23rd in the 5 lap. Like, he should be competitive, but just not in love with it. I think I'd rather play Priest, starting 11 spots further back, who's going to be in similar equipment. And speaking of Priest, $7,200 for him, starting in 31st. Similar practice speeds, 15th in the 10, 22nd in the 5. Like, if I had to pick between Briscoe and Priest, I'm just going to take Priest because he starts further back. Austin Cindric, $7,100. He's starting at 9, just starting too far up for me. I'm probably going to have to fade there. Don't really see a reason to want to be too high on Cindric. I'd much rather play Busher, $6,900. He's starting in 18th. Might be a decent tournament play here. He was fast in practice. He doesn't offer you a ton of place differential upside, and it's not like he's super cheap either, but he finished 13th last week at Auto Club. 4th in the 1 lap, 8th in the 5 and 10, and also 2nd in the 15, but barely any drivers ran the 15 run. But I think Busher's a pretty solid play here. Not sure I'll get there in cash games, but I do think he's fine. Ricky Stenhouse, $6,800. Didn't have a bad finish last week, but just starting a little bit high for me. Although these lower wear tracks have not been bad for him. If you're thinking back to last season, average finishes had the top 20. And same for their average running position as well, with a couple of top 15s and a top 10 mixed in for him. So I don't think Stenhouse is a bad play per se, but I'm not super excited about it. Ty Gibbs, I like the talent, but he's starting way too far up for me. I'll probably just have none. Eric Almirola starting in 21st. Actually pretty fast in practice. 3rd in the 10 lap, 6th in the 5, and 9th in the 1 lap. I believe he had a good finish here last year in this race. Obviously, it wasn't super impressive overall. We're talking an average running position of 20th. And if you look at the intermediates in general last year for Eric Almirola, 11 race sample size, pretty much right on par with what he did at Vegas, Kansas, and Auto Club last week. So starting in 21st, at his price point, what we saw in practice, it's fine. Do I think he's going to be a top 5, top 6 car during the race? No, but he could be a top 15 contender, and that's not terrible. Noah Gragson, not fast in practice. He's a rookie, still learning his way in the next-gen car and whatnot. I'm not super excited about it. Probably not going to have much of any. Maybe a sprinkle there, but that's really about it. AJ Allmendinger, not bad in practice, 13th, 10th, and 17th, starting in 23rd. Just one of those guys where if you're just looking for guys the roster, I'm fine with Dinger, but just, again, I'm not going to go out of my way to play AJ Allmendinger because we have Harrison Burton starting all the way in 35th in the back, and he was actually pretty fast in practice. So just have a hard time getting the Dinger. He's a tournament play. Like, I'd rather play his teammate Justin Haley, who was decent in practice, 21st and 16th, not quite as fast as Dinger, but you're giving me 4 extra spots. He's a little bit cheaper. I'm fine with that. Michael McDowell starting in 17th, a little bit high for me. I know practice was a little bit better for him, 13th in the 5 and 16th in the 10. But again, the starting spot's going to be a bit tough for me to get there. Harrison Burton, he's going to be the chalk, decent in practice, but then he ends up running over a lug nut, which broke something in the car and ends up going into the wall. It wasn't really his fault. But he's pretty much starting dead last year, only in front of BJ McLeod. And assuming he doesn't hit another lug nut, he should be a top 25 contender. And he's really cheap, so you're just going to pretty much lock him in cash games. If you're looking at how he performed last year, this 5-race sample size that I'm looking at, talking average finish of 22 and an average rank position of 22.9 with a couple top 20s mixed in. So yeah, you're playing Burton. And even in tournaments, I don't mind just eating the cheap chalk back here. Yes, there are some pivots we can get to, like Michael McDowell or Justin Haley, but it's just going to be really hard to get away from Burton. He's definitely going to be one of the better value plays in the entire slate. Ty Dillon, $5,400, starting in 33rd. Wasn't running too bad last week, but it's another issue for Ty Dillon. It's going to be tough to trust that car this season. Wasn't fast in practice, but if you can avoid carnage, yeah, he's a fine PD play. But I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to pivot off of Burton to get to Ty Dillon, because I don't think that's as lateral as the DraftKings is making it seem. Like, Burton's in much better equipment. I mean, pretty much that 4th Penske car, and his backup car is coming from Penske. So don't think that Burton and Dillon are like really in the same tier as far as equipment is concerned, because Dillon's in an Aspire car in the 77, and Burton is in definitely a better ride, has more potential in my opinion. I should be pretty much everyone's opinion as well. Corey LaJoie starting a little bit too far up front for me. I know he did that last week and kind of held his ground, wrecked a lot of people, but was not fast in practice whatsoever. Gilliland starting in 28th. Like, if I had to pick between Ty Dillon or Gilliland, I think I'd rather just go with Gilliland, because I think he should have some more speed, which was evident in practice. And then Ware, McLeod, and Yaley, I do not play these guys. I know BJ McLeod is starting dead last, but let's be honest, if this race stayed clean and no one ever wrecked, he's probably finishing last. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week. I hope you did enjoy, and if you did, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. If you want to join the Patreon, you get all the extra content. Links down below in the description or the pinned comment for that. And don't forget, I will be live on Sunday morning around 11 a.m. Eastern. If you guys have any questions, or if you just want to come in and hang out, I will be there. So hopefully I see you there as well. But I'll get out of here. Wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.